I never thought much about death. Sure, I knew it would come one day, but it always felt like something far off, something that happened to other people, not me. I was just living my life, trying to make ends meet, dealing with everyday struggles like everyone else. But what happened to me changed everything. I died. And what I saw on the other side, it shattered every assumption I had about the world, about the future, about what's coming. I was shown something terrifying. Not just a warning, but a vision of how the mark of the beast will be implemented. I saw with my own eyes how the entire system will unfold, how people will be trapped into taking it, and what will happen to those who refuse. And now I'm here, alive, because I have to tell you the truth before it's too late. But before I get to that, you need to understand how it all began. Before my death, I was just an ordinary person. I had a job, bills to pay, and a family that loved me. Life was stressful, but I kept pushing forward like everyone else. I wasn't overly religious, but I believed in God, or at least I thought I did. I went to church when I could, said a prayer now and then, and tried to be a decent person. But deep down, I was spiritually asleep. Like most people, I was caught up in the distractions of life. I scrolled through my phone for hours, drowned myself in work, and numbed my mind with entertainment. News headlines flashed by every day: wars, financial collapse, new government policies, but I never gave them much thought. The world's always been crazy, I would tell myself. It's nothing new. I had heard about the mark of the beast before, but I brushed it off as some far-off prophecy, something that would happen long after I was gone. I never imagined I would witness it firsthand. That night was like any other. I had just gotten home from work, exhausted from the day. I remember sitting on the couch flipping through the news. Talks of a global financial reset were everywhere. Governments were discussing a new digital system, one that promised to fix the economy and end corruption. They called it progress. I didn't know it then, but what I was seeing was just the beginning. Something about that night felt different, though I couldn't explain why. I had a strange heaviness in my chest, like something was about to happen. I remember thinking, what if all these warnings in the Bible are real? What if we're closer to the end than we think? But I quickly shook off the thought. I got up, made some food, and sat down with my family. We talked, laughed, and went to bed like usual. I had no idea that would be the last time I saw them before my life changed forever. Because that night, I died. It happened so fast. One moment, I was in my bed, drifting off to sleep. The next, I was gasping for air. A sharp, searing pain filled my chest, like someone had grabbed my heart and squeezed with all their strength. My eyes shot open, but I couldn't move. My limbs felt heavy, frozen in place. My breath came in short, ragged gasps, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't pull in enough air. What's happening? Panic surged through me. My brain screamed for me to sit up, to reach for my phone, to do something, but my body wouldn't listen. The pain spread, radiating from my chest to my arms. A strange, tingling sensation crawled down my fingertips. My vision blurred at the edges, darkness creeping in like ink spilled on paper. Am I dying? The thought should have been absurd, but it wasn't. Deep down, I knew. I was leaving. A shuddering breath escaped my lips, and just like that, silence. Everything around me faded. I wasn't in my bed anymore. I wasn't anywhere. It took me a few seconds, if time even existed here, to realize what was happening. I was floating. At least that's how it felt. There was no weight, no pain, no sensation in my body at all. But I was still aware. Then I saw it. My room, my bed, my body. I was lying there, completely still, eyes half open, but vacant. My chest wasn't rising. I wasn't breathing. A rush of emotions hit me all at once. Fear, confusion, disbelief. I wanted to scream, to call for help, but I had no voice. Then I saw something else, a presence. It wasn't a person, not exactly, but it was dark. A shadowy figure hovered near my body, almost as if it was waiting. And in that moment, I felt something I had never felt before. A deep, paralyzing terror. I didn't know what it was, but I knew what it wanted. Me. I tried to move, to fight. But how could I fight when I didn't even have a body? That's when it happened. A force, strong, undeniable, yanked me upward. It was as if an invisible hand had reached down and grabbed me, pulling me away from my room, away from the shadow, away from everything I had ever known. The world around me ripped apart. I was moving at an impossible speed, shooting upward like a comet through space. The darkness below shrank, swallowed up by an overwhelming light. And then I stopped. The first thing I noticed was the air. It felt alive, warm, thick with something more than oxygen, something that filled every part of me. I took a breath, and for the first time in my life I felt whole. The place around me was impossible to describe. It wasn't just light, it was more than that. The light itself had a presence, a power that radiated peace and authority at the same time. And then I saw him. Standing before me was a figure dressed in a robe so white it seemed to shine from within. His hair was like wool, yet his face was unlike anything I had ever seen, powerful, radiant, filled with a love that shook me to my core. His eyes, they weren't just looking at me, they were seeing me. Every thought I had ever had, every lie I had told, every moment of doubt, fear, and regret. Yet there was no condemnation in his gaze. Only the truth. Only love. My knees buckled beneath me. Jesus. I didn't need anyone to tell me. I knew. I was standing before Jesus Christ. I couldn't speak. How could I? I was kneeling, no, collapsed, before the most overwhelming presence I had ever encountered. Every part of me felt exposed, as if I had been stripped down to my very soul. There were no secrets here, no pretending. Yet there was no judgment in his eyes, only a love so deep it was terrifying in its purity. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't, because in his gaze I saw everything, every mistake, every selfish thought, every moment of doubt. And yet, he still loved me. Tears burned down my face, though I wasn't sure if I even had a body in this place. My chest heaved with sobs. I was completely undone. Then, he spoke. It wasn't just sound, it was power. His voice didn't just reach my ears, it filled every part of me. It was like a rushing river, like thunder rolling across the heavens, yet it was also gentle, steady, and filled with authority. Rise. I didn't know how, but I obeyed. Strength filled me, and I stood on shaking legs. Jesus looked at me, his expression unreadable yet full of something I couldn't describe, a mixture of sorrow and urgency. "You have died," he said. "Your time on earth is over." The words should have sent me into a panic, but in his presence, fear had no place. There was only truth. I swallowed hard. Then, is this heaven? Jesus didn't answer right away. Instead, he gestured with his hand, and suddenly, everything shifted. I wasn't standing in the light anymore. The atmosphere changed, and in an instant I found myself looking at something that wasn't heaven at all. I was somewhere else. The first thing I noticed was the city skyline. It was modern, filled with towering buildings and flashing digital billboards. It looked like New York, or maybe Los Angeles. At first glance, it seemed normal. People walked the streets. Businesses were open. The world was functioning just as it always had. But something was wrong. I noticed how quiet it was. Not silent, but controlled. The way people moved, the way they spoke. It was careful, calculated, almost robotic. Then I saw the checkpoints. At every major intersection, there were booths guarded by men in sleek black uniforms. People walked up one by one, stopping before a scanner. They placed their right hand or forehead under a red light, and only when it beeped green were they allowed to continue. A man stepped forward. He looked like an average businessman, mid-40s, dressed in a suit. He placed his right hand under the scanner. The light flashed red. Instantly, 2 guards stepped in. One of them spoke into a small device, and within seconds, a drone hovered overhead, scanning the man's face. "You are not in the system," one guard said flatly. The man's face drained of color. "There must be a mistake. I signed up. I swear. Check again." But there was no mercy. The guards grabbed him, and within seconds, he was dragged into a black armored van waiting nearby. The doors slammed shut. No one reacted. People kept walking, as if they hadn't just watched a man disappear. My blood ran cold. I turned to Jesus, my heart pounding. "What is this?" His expression was sorrowful. "This is what is coming." I turned back and saw a massive screen above one of the buildings. A man's face appeared, a political leader, though I didn't recognize him. He was speaking, but the words were subtitled in different languages. "For the safety and security of our global citizens, we must ensure that all people are integrated into the new system. With your compliance, we can create a society free from poverty, crime, and inequality." A logo flashed behind him. It wasn't a flag, but a symbol, a sleek, circular design that looked like a fusion of technology and authority. Beneath the screen, people stood in line at registration centers. Each one stepped forward and had something implanted into their right hand. Some received it willingly, others hesitated. I saw a young woman with a child. She shook her head, backing away from the officials trying to scan her. "Please," she begged, "I just need food for my son." "You cannot buy or sell without the mark," a woman in a suit told her coldly. The young mother broke down in sobs. I clutched my chest. "This is the mark of the beast." Jesus nodded. "The world will not recognize it at first. It will begin with financial systems, digital identity, and global security measures. But in the end, it will not be about safety or convenience. It will be about worship." I turned back to the vision. On another screen, a man was being publicly executed. His crime: refusing the global allegiance. My knees went weak. "Lord, how can this happen? People won't accept this. Will they?" Jesus looked at me with sadness. "The world is already being prepared. But not everyone will take it, right?" I asked desperately. He was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Some will resist. Many will die for my name. But those who endure to the end shall be saved." I felt sick. My hands were shaking. "Jesus, why are you showing me this?" His gaze pierced through me. "Because you must tell them." The vision faded, and I found myself back in the radiant presence of Jesus. My breath came in short gasps. I felt like my soul had just been torn apart. I wanted to believe this wasn't real, but in his presence, I knew it was. "You must go back," he said. My chest tightened. "No, Lord, I don't want to go back. Please, your time is not yet finished." I felt something pulling me, dragging me away from the light. "Tell them. Tell them what you have seen." And then, everything went dark. I gasped. Air rushed into my lungs, burning as if I had been drowning and had just broken the surface. My chest heaved violently, my heart pounding against my ribs. I was back in my body. I blinked rapidly, staring at the ceiling of my bedroom. The familiar sight of my fan spinning lazily above me should have brought comfort, but it didn't. Nothing felt the same. I was different. The weight of what I had seen, the vision, the warnings, the truth, pressed down on me. My mind reeled, struggling to process it all. Had it really happened? Was I truly dead? Or had it all been some kind of nightmare? I knew the truth. I had seen Jesus. I had stood before him. I had witnessed what was coming, and now I was back. But why? His words echoed in my spirit, as clear as if he were still standing before me. Tell them. I bolted upright, throwing off the covers. My hands were trembling as I grabbed my phone from the nightstand. The screen was dark. Dead battery. I didn't even care. I stumbled out of bed, my legs weak beneath me, barely able to hold my weight. I had no idea how long I had been gone, but I felt as if I had been gone for years. I had to tell someone. I ran into the hallway, my heart still hammering in my chest. The house was silent. My family came to visit a day before, but everything felt off. I spotted my younger sister in the living room, scrolling on her phone. Perfect. "Listen to me," I burst out, my voice frantic. "I just saw Jesus. I was dead. I saw the mark of the beast." She barely looked up. "What?" "I died. I left my body. I was with Jesus. He showed me what's coming. The mark, the persecution, the new system." I was speaking so fast I could barely breathe. My hands waved as I spoke, desperate for her to understand the urgency. She squinted at me like I had lost my mind. "What are you talking about?" "You don't understand. It's happening soon. The government, the financial system, they're already laying the groundwork. I saw it. We have to warn people." She laughed. "Wow, you really need some sleep." She shook her head, turning back to her phone. "You sound crazy." Crazy. That word hit me like a slap. This was real. I grabbed her phone out of her hands. "This isn't a joke. I saw people getting taken. If you don't have the mark, you can't buy or sell. You can't even live. People were being arrested, killed." Okay, relax." She rolled her eyes and took her phone back. "So you had a dream. Big deal." A dream? Was that really what she thought? I had died. I had been with Jesus. I had seen the future. But no matter how desperately I tried to explain, she wouldn't believe me. I ran to my mother next. She listened more than my sister did, but I could see it in her face. She didn't fully believe me either. "You were probably just hallucinating," she said gently. "Maybe your brain was playing tricks on you." "Mom, I died." My voice cracked. "You don't understand. I wasn't in my body anymore. I saw myself lying in bed. Jesus sent me back. He told me to warn people." She sighed, rubbing my arm. "You need rest, sweetheart. Maybe we should go to the hospital, just to be safe." I staggered back. The hospital? They thought something was wrong with me. They didn't understand. They didn't see. No one believed me. I sat alone in my room, gripping my knees to my chest, rocking slightly. The walls felt like they were closing in. I had hoped that telling people would be easy, that they would listen, that they would wake up. But no, they dismissed me, brushed me off, laughed, and that terrified me more than anything. Because if they didn't believe me, if they thought I was just imagining things, how many others would ignore the truth when the time came? The next few days felt surreal. My family went about life as usual. My sister still spent hours on social media laughing at videos. My mum still watched the news, muttering about gas prices and inflation. Everything was the same. But I wasn't. I couldn't shake the vision. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the streets lined with checkpoints, the scanners, the people disappearing, the executions. The worst part, it had all looked so normal. I started noticing things I had ignored before, small signs, cashless payment systems expanding, Governments talking about digital IDs, rising economic instability. It was starting, and no one could see it. One night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I whispered, "Jesus, what do I do? No one believes me." And then I heard it. Not out loud, but deep within my spirit. "Tell them anyway." A shudder ran through me. "But they don't listen." "Tell them anyway." I swallowed hard. He was right. It didn't matter if they believed me or not. It didn't matter if they laughed, if they called me crazy, if they ignored every word I said. I had seen the truth, and I couldn't stay silent, no matter the cost. I couldn't sleep. It had been days, maybe weeks, since I came back, but my heart still pounded with urgency. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the vision again. The checkpoints, the scanners, the people vanishing into black vans. But what haunted me the most was how normal it all looked. Because it meant that when it happened, when it truly began, most people wouldn't even realize what was going on. Not until it was too late. And so, I did the only thing I could. I started researching. I wasn't looking for conspiracy theories. I didn't need them, because the proof was already there. The more I dug, the more I saw it. The foundation being laid right in front of us. Financial systems shifting toward digital currencies, governments pushing for global digital IDs, new tracking systems being tested, and all of it was disguised as something good. They called it convenience. They said it would stop fraud, make things safer, improve security. But I knew what I had seen. This was how it would begin. I sat at my desk, my laptop glowing in the dim room. My fingers trembled as I clicked through article after article. A government official in Europe had just announced a plan to phase out physical cash in the next 5 years. Banks were discussing a new global currency, a system that would track every single transaction. It was all happening. I leaned back in my chair, my breath unsteady. I had expected to find clues, but I hadn't expected to find everything. The world wasn't just preparing for this. It was racing toward it. I knew I had to tell people. I had to warn them. I started with my family again. I sat my mom down, showing her the articles, the videos, the government announcements. This wasn't some wild idea. It was happening in real time. "Mom, look at this," I pleaded. "They're making it so you won't be able to buy or sell without being part of their system. This is exactly what the Bible warned about." She sighed, rubbing her temples. "Sweetheart, you're getting obsessed with this. You need to stop reading all this stuff. It's not healthy." "It's not just stuff. It's real. Mom, I saw it. I was there." She shook her head. "It's good to have faith, but you can't believe everything you see online." I slammed my laptop shut, frustration bubbling inside me. Why wouldn't they listen? I tried my sister next. She barely even looked at me. "Oh my gosh, you're still on that. You need to chill." I gritted my teeth. "One day you'll remember this conversation." She rolled her eyes. "Yeah, sure. Just let me know when they start chipping people at Walmart." I wanted to scream. I decided to try my pastor. If anyone would listen, surely it would be him. I met him after church one Sunday, my hands clutching my notes. I had written down everything, the vision, the scriptures, the real-world evidence. "Pastor, I need to talk to you. It's urgent." He smiled. "Of course, what's on your heart?" I took a deep breath and told him everything. The vision, the mark of the beast, the warnings, how everything was already falling into place. He listened. At first I thought he was taking me seriously, but when I finished, he let out a long sigh. "I appreciate your passion," he said gently, "but we have to be careful not to get caught up in fear-mongering." My stomach dropped. "Fear-mongering? Pastor, this isn't fear. It's truth. This is happening." He nodded. "I understand that these times seem troubling, but the Bible tells us not to be afraid. We need to focus on love, not panic. There have been rumors of the end times for centuries. We must remain faithful and not get distracted. Distracted? I echoed, my voice shaking. Pastor, Jesus showed me this. How can I ignore it? He sighed again. Just keep praying. But be careful about spreading things that might cause unnecessary fear. I walked out of the church feeling like I was suffocating. Even the church wouldn't listen. That night, I sat alone in my room, staring at my reflection in the darkened window. I felt completely alone. But I knew I wasn't. Jesus had shown me this for a reason. Even if no one listened, even if they called me crazy, I still had to warn them. I started writing everything down. I created a blog, then a social media account. I started sharing what I had seen, the vision, the scripture, the real-world proof. At first, only a few people followed, then dozens, then hundreds. Some people laughed, mocked, called me paranoid, said I was spreading nonsense, but others started waking up. I've been noticing the same things. Something about this world feels off. I had a dream about this too. And that's when I knew I wasn't alone. One night, as I was reading through the comments, I heard his voice again, not out loud, but deep inside my spirit. They do not see, but some will listen. A shudder ran through me. Lord, what if they silence me? His answer was immediate. Then speak louder. I swallowed hard. I had a choice. I could stay silent, or I could shout the truth until the whole world heard it. I knew what was coming, and I wouldn't stop warning them, no matter the cost. I wasn't prepared for how much it would cost me, speaking out, warning people. At first, I thought the hardest part would be getting people to believe me, but I quickly realized something else. Some didn't want to believe. They mocked me, laughed, called me crazy. Even my own family had distanced themselves. But still I kept going, because somewhere in the sea of voices that ridiculed me, there were a few who were listening, and they were the ones who mattered. One evening, as I scrolled through my messages, something caught my eye. A DM from a woman named Lisa. Hey, I don't know why, but something about your post hit me hard. I used to be a Christian, but I walked away. I don't know what's happening, but I feel like I need to talk to you. Can we chat? My heart raced. I quickly replied, yes, please. What's on your heart? We moved to a call. Her voice was shaky. I don't know why, but ever since I saw your post, I haven't been able to sleep. It's like something inside me is waking up. I took a deep breath. This was it. Lisa, I think Jesus is calling you back. She broke down. She told me about her past, how she grew up in church but drifted away when life got hard, how she stopped believing. But recently, she had been feeling like something was coming. I don't know if I even believe anymore, she whispered. But you do, I said gently, or you wouldn't be here. A long silence. Then, in a broken voice, what do I do? I felt tears sting my eyes. This is why Jesus sent me back. Come home. Right there over the phone, Lisa prayed. She repented. She asked Jesus back into her life. By the time we hung up, she was sobbing. Thank you, she whispered. I feel like I can breathe again. I put my phone down and wept. For the first time since I came back, I felt peace. Lisa wasn't the only one. Slowly, more people started reaching out. A man named David messaged me, saying he had been having strange dreams, dreams that matched what I had described. A girl named Samantha said she had never believed in God before, but something in her spirit told her to listen. More and more, people were waking up. And it wasn't because of me, it was Jesus. He was calling them. But with every person who listened, the attacks grew stronger. I started getting hateful messages, people accusing me of spreading fear, Some even threatened me. "Shut up with this nonsense. You're brainwashing people. Crazy religious freak." I even got warnings from my job. They didn't like me talking about controversial topics on my social media. I knew what they were really saying. Shut up, or else. But I couldn't shut up, because I had seen the truth. And now, so had others. One night, I got an email from a man named Mark. "I don't believe in God. I think religion is a joke. But your posts make me uncomfortable because I feel like you actually believe what you're saying. So convince me. Why should I listen?" I hesitated. This wasn't just someone searching for truth. This was someone who wanted to argue. But I responded anyway. We agreed to meet in a cafe. When I walked in, he was already sitting there, tall, sharp-eyed, arms crossed. I could tell he wasn't here to listen. "All right," he said as I sat down. "You really believe all this?" I nodded. "Then prove it." I didn't argue. I didn't throw Bible verses at him. I simply told him what I saw. I described the moment I left my body, the overwhelming presence of Jesus, the vision, the mark, the persecution. I told him how I had tried to ignore it, how people had mocked me, how even I had wanted to doubt at times. "But the truth is, Mark," I leaned in, "I can't deny what I saw, and neither can you." His smirk faded. Something shifted in his eyes. He didn't say much after that, just listened, really listened. And before we left, he muttered, "I don't know why, but I'll think about it." And I knew. A seed had been planted. As I walked home that night, I felt the weight of it all. The mockery, the threats, the exhaustion, but also the people who were waking up, the ones who were starting to see. And I realized something. This wasn't about me. It was bigger. Jesus had sent me back not to be believed by everyone, but to reach the ones who were meant to listen. And for them, I would never stop. The more I spoke, the more people woke up. But the more people woke up, the more the enemy fought back. At first, it was just words, mockery, laughter, people calling me crazy. Then it became something else, something darker, because I wasn't just speaking words anymore. I was pulling people out of darkness, and the enemy hated it. It started with an email. At first, I thought it was just another angry message. I got so many now that I barely paid attention to them. But this one was different. "You need to stop. You're playing with fire. This won't end well for you." There was no name, no reply address, just that message. Something about it made my stomach turn. I tried to ignore it. But then, the phone calls started. At first, they were just silent. I'd pick up, and they'd be breathing on the other end. Then, "You need to stop." End of call. One night I was walking home from the grocery store. It was late, the streetlights buzzing overhead. My arms were full of bags. Then I felt it, that feeling, like someone was watching me. I quickened my pace, my heart hammered. I glanced back, nothing, just empty sidewalks. But the feeling didn't go away. I knew someone had been there, watching. But even as the darkness grew, so did the light. People were coming to Jesus. Lisa had started reading the Bible daily. She even joined a small group. Mark, the atheist, messaged me out of nowhere. "Hey, I've been reading the Gospels. I don't know what's happening, but something's changing in me." I cried when I saw that message. People were waking up. The enemy was losing. That's why he was fighting so hard. One night, I had a dream. But this wasn't like other dreams. This was a warning. I was standing in a massive city. People walked around, laughing, shopping, going about life. Then, suddenly, sirens. The screens on the buildings flickered and a message appeared. I watched as people lined up at kiosks, scanning their faces, their hands. And then I saw the ones who refused. They were pulled away, dragged. No one screamed, no one fought back. They just disappeared. And then I saw myself, standing in the crowd, watching. And a voice behind me whispered, "It's coming." I spun around, but no one was there. Then I woke up, drenched in sweat. And I knew Jesus was telling me, "It's closer than you think." The next day, my social media account was banned. No warning, no explanation, just gone. Then my second account, banned. I tried making a third. It lasted 2 days before they wiped it. Someone didn't want me speaking, but they didn't understand something. I wasn't afraid, because I knew who sent me, and as long as I had breath in my lungs, I would never stop. That night, I got down on my knees and prayed, "Jesus, what now?" And in the stillness, I heard him, "Keep going." So, I did. I started preaching on the streets. I printed flyers with the message of salvation. I found new ways to reach people. And something amazing happened. People started gathering, on street corners, in coffee shops, even in homes. They were hungry for the truth. And that's when I realized the enemy could try to silence me, but he could never silence the truth. I later ended up joining an underground group. I never planned on it. But then again, I never planned on dying and meeting Jesus either. The world was changing fast. The news kept saying everything was under control, but I could see the cracks forming. Prices kept rising. Governments kept pushing for more control. And slowly, people were being conditioned to accept whatever was coming next. I wasn't the only one who saw it. One day, a man named Daniel approached me after one of my street sermons. "You're brave," he said, "but you're being watched." I tensed. "I know," he nodded. "Come with me." I hesitated. Who was this man? But something inside me whispered, "Go." So I followed him. We walked through back alleys, slipping past the noise of the city until we reached an abandoned building, and inside there were dozens of them, men, women, young, old, some sitting in circles, Bibles open, others quietly praying. The air was thick with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Daniel turned to me. "This is the church, the real church. Not a building, not a brand, just people who refused to be silenced." This wasn't just a Bible study. They were preparing people. They talked about what was coming, the signs, the warnings, the mark. They weren't hiding in fear. They were getting ready. I sat with them for hours, listening, sharing what I had seen. And for the first time since I came back, I wasn't alone. These people understood. They believed. They weren't waiting for the world to fall apart. They were equipping people for when it did. I started meeting with them regularly. We trained each other, not just spiritually, but practically. How to help others when things got worse. How to stand firm when the world demanded we bow. It wasn't paranoia, it was preparation, because we had seen the signs. And soon the world would see them too. If you've made it this far, listen to me. This is not a coincidence. You weren't meant to hear these words and walk away unchanged. You weren't meant to ignore this message and return to life as if nothing happened. Because something is happening. Maybe you've felt it, the shift, the unease, the sense that the world is on the edge of something big. Maybe you've dismissed it, told yourself it's just the way things are, but deep down, you know that's not true. You've seen it. The chaos, the division, the fear. And now, you've heard the warning. Jesus showed me the truth. He showed me what's coming. And now, that truth is in your hands. You can't unhear it. You can't pretend you don't know. This is your wake-up call. For too long, people have ignored the signs, believing they had more time. But time is running out. The system is already being built. The world is already being prepared. And soon, the choice will be in front of you. Jesus said, Whoever is not with me is against me. Matthew 12:30. There is no middle ground. To stay silent is to take a side. To ignore the truth is to reject it. The warnings have been given. The signs are all around us. Those who have eyes to see, see. Those who have ears to hear, listen. But the choice remains yours. What will you do with this truth? Will you stand boldly, no matter the cost? Will you hold on to Jesus when the world demands your loyalty elsewhere? Or will you turn away, convincing yourself it doesn't matter? But remember this, you can't say you weren't warned, now, right here, right now. What will you do when the world turns against you? When following Jesus costs you everything, will you still choose him? Or will fear silence you? Because the time of easy faith is over. The battle has begun.